All right, so everybody should have gotten the notice now that we are now both recording and streaming live to our Facebook page. And we will get started on our agenda now. So I'm going to share my screen. I do know how to do this. Do I have permissions to share? Oh, I do, there it is. One second, everybody. Okay, I am just going to share my screen here as it is. Okay, so welcome to our July meeting of the 43rd District Democrats. My name is Scott Alspa. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the chair of the 43rd. It is great to have you all here with us. So as is our custom now, we will begin tonight's meeting with a land acknowledgement, which is going to be given by 43rd Communications Chair, Kelsey Hamlin.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. So just for land acknowledgement purposes, although we are all joining virtually, we'd like to start this event acknowledging that we stand on the land of stolen land of Native people. It is important to recognize that this land was taken from its original caretakers and then degraded to meet the needs or desires of European settlers. I want us to honor the nations and their land. In the 43rd, we are on the traditional land of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish people, the Stillaguamish, Coast Salish, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the original tribal stewards of this land. Please take a moment to reflect on any nations you know who cared for this land or the land that you grew up on. If you know any or would like to look it up, there will be a handy link in the chat.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kelsey. Really appreciate that. So then going through the rest of our meeting procedures, Maddie Von Hoff, our vice chair, is helping us out with meeting management tonight and is going to go through how to get our attention and participate in this meeting. Take it away, Maddie.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Maddie, I use she, her pronouns. Just going to go quickly over the general meeting operations before heading into the meeting norms. So first of all, to seek the floor for any reason, please raise your Zoom hand by selecting reactions in your meeting window and then raise hand. The chair will be calling on raised hands in the order that they appear. And then once you've spoken, please lower your hand. Just that way we know we can get to the next person. It might also appear in the participants panel, depending on what setting you're on. We have some people on the phone tonight. So if you are on the phone, to raise your hand when calling in, you're going to press *9. Should the chair need to take a quick poll of our membership, we might ask you to choose a yes or no reaction, which can be found in the reactions or the participants panel. General chat is disabled, but you can message us as the host directly should you need help. For any technical difficulties, you can reach out. We do say Morgan, but unfortunately, spoiler alert, we don't have Morgan here this evening, but you can message me throughout the night. For voting code help, please email tally@43rddemocrats.org. That is just the easiest way. Unfortunately, chat just moves so fast. So please email and then be patient waiting for a response. We are live streaming this on Facebook right now, and this does have chat enabled. So should you wish to take part, that can happen during the meeting, and the link to the page will be found in the chat window as I wrap up. Next slide.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Maddie. And then our meeting norms.
And then just some quick meeting norms, as we've gone over before in our other meetings. Please remember to treat each other with dignity and respect. If you don't know, that's totally fine. And if I went over the rules just now and you still have questions about them, more than okay, please raise your hand and we will get to you. If you are, whether you're experienced member of the 43rd or this is your first meeting, we ask everyone to remember to step up, step back. So should you have any questions, don't hesitate to step up to ask. Or should you be quite experienced, please remember to step back to allow other folks into that space. Remember, everyone here tonight is a volunteer, everyone you see on the screen. So please respect that and be patient as folks get to you. And then just remember that together we do share a responsibility for staying on time. So we will help you with that. You will help us with that. And then hopefully we will wrap up this meeting tonight in a timely fashion. Your turn, Scott.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maddie. Really appreciate that. So the piece that I am going through is Robert's Rules of Order. For those who don't know, maybe this is your first meeting. Robert's Rules of Order are the set of parliamentary procedures that we use to run our meetings and make sure everybody has a fair chance to speak and to debate and discuss the items that we're going to be considering tonight. You don't need to know the details to participate in our meetings. If you have something you want to contribute, if you need to ask a question, please raise your hand and we will help you get your question answered or form your request into a motion. Robert's Rules of Order is complex. It's a really thick book and instruction manual, but most of the motions are pretty simple. You'll hear folks move to approve, to amend, or postpone, different things. If you ever don't know what is going on, please feel free to raise your hand and ask us to slow down or explain what we're voting on. We really want to make sure that everybody is able to fully participate in our meetings. And then the last request is that if you are a parliamentary rock star, you know Robert's Rules of Order front to back, please use your powers for good and consider the impact that making really complicated motions can have on others. And that's where, as Maddie was saying, we really hope to get out on time tonight. Really appreciate your consideration in helping to make sure our meetings run smoothly and that we don't fall into deep Robert's Rules discussions. That's a really good opportunity for me to let you all know that Tara Gallagher is serving as our parliamentarian tonight. Really appreciate Tara stepping up to help with us with that. So with that, I will get to our agenda. Sorry, I have to navigate my screen while I'm sharing multiple things here. And I do want to say I see both of our 43rd district representatives here, Representative Frank Chop and Representative Nicole Macri, and really appreciate you both being with us here tonight. So with that, we will get to our agenda, and I am trying to figure out the best way to share this. Here it is. My hope is that somebody has access to the meeting chat right now can share the link to that. All right, so this is our agenda. I hope you all can see it. There was one suggested modification to the agenda, which was to move our primary get out the vote plan and call to action up here after PCO approvals and before our resolutions. So if there's no objections to that, we can make that change. Are there any objections to making that small change? All right, seeing none, we will move that up. Thank you, everybody. And then any other, I'll just remove the time here, any other changes to our agenda? All right, seeing none, any objections to approving our agenda? All right, great, we have an agenda approved. Are there any corrections to our June meeting minutes? Okay, seeing none. I will stop sharing my screen. Great. Yeah, so seeing no corrections, we have our June meeting minutes approved, and we will dive into the meat of our agenda here, right on time with our PCOs. So Cody Olson is our PCO chair, and we have one PCO up for approval tonight. Oh, take it away, Cody.
Were you kicking the floor to me, or were you immediately going to the PCO?
I was. You take it away.
Totally. Yeah, sorry. Hello, I'm Cody. I use he, him pronouns, and tonight we will be voting on Efren's appointment. Efren is a member of the board as well, and has recently moved locations within the 43rd. So we'll be voting on appointing them to precinct 433947. So very excited about that.
Great. And Efren, do you want to introduce yourself again to everybody real quick? Just say hi.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Efren Hudnell, he, him pronouns. As Cody mentioned, I've previously been serving in the PCO position for Seattle 433595, but then I moved and I am still within the 43rd, but am in a different precinct. So graciously asking for a reappointment in 3947, numbers getting confusing, 3947, which is currently vacant. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Efren. So with that, is there any objection to appointing Efren as a PCO of 3947? Any objection? Not expecting any? All right, great. Congratulations, Efren, on being appointed PCO a second time. Thanks, thanks so much. All right, with that, Cody, you are going to keep the floor and let folks know, our other PCOs and members, about how they can get a walk list from us for the primary election.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's GOTV season, or at the minimum, it's primary season. So what I'm going to do right now in the chat is I am going to share a Google form, and this is for folks who have been PCOs before. Pretty similar to the form from last year and previous years. It just asks if you want a get out the vote list. The happy change this year is it does specify, do you want a phone list or do you want a walk list? Very excited that folks are getting vaccinated and are able to get back out there and canvass should they choose to. Still totally up to your comfort level. What we do ask is that if you are going out there to canvass, even though we know most of you are vaccinated, we do ask that you wear a mask. You know, almost less for your own safety and more to sort of, I think, just give good optics and make sure that if somebody's opening the door that they kind of know that like every precaution's being taken. You know, they might not know your vaccination status. So yeah, feel free to fill that out. I'll also be sending this, in a couple email forms. So if there are other PCOs you're aware of who aren't at the meeting tonight, you can either send it to them yourselves, but I'll also be making a point to send it to them. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me with any questions about the form, but fill that out. And over the next couple days, I'll be getting folks their list. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Cody. Really appreciate that. And if anybody has questions about that, would be great to, you can just message Cody right now in the chat, or email him as well. Cody, what's your email for folks?
Yes, it's Cody.Olson. I'm actually realizing I'm going to butcher it right now. Cody.Olson at 43rd Democrats. I'm just going to copy and send it here into the chat. I think that's a little easier.
That would be great. Yeah, thanks.
There we go. That is the email. Also include my phone number. Folks are always welcome to call me and ask a question too. I find this can be particularly helpful if you're like in the middle of a list and you're like, this is a pretty simple question. I just kind of need some help troubleshooting something right now. More than happy to kind of be nimble and jump on a phone call. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cody. Really appreciate that. and encourage folks to reach out to Cody with any questions and also to get a walk list. So really important to get out the vote for the upcoming primary. Everybody has their, or should have their ballots by now, and it's time for us to remind folks to vote. Okay, so moving on through our modified agenda, we have a host of resolutions that we are considering tonight. The first two of these are resolutions, but they're also endorsement votes. So they will require a 60% threshold in order to pass. So the first one that we have up is a resolution to endorse the House Our Neighbors campaign, which is will also serve as an endorsement of the no position on the Charter Amendment 29, which is commonly known as Compassion Seattle here this year. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Camille Gix, our policy chair, to introduce this resolution.
Hi, everyone. So as Scott said, we are bringing forward this resolution to endorse the House Our Neighbors campaign in opposition to Charter Amendment 29. As a lot of people are becoming more and more aware of, Charter Amendment 29 was proposed by an organization called Compassion Seattle, funded by the Downtown Seattle Association, and they have a whole charter amendment. It's quite short, quick to read, and it proposes a variety of things, such as more units of emergency or permanent housing, and it has no funding. No funding proposal on it. It is in section 3 of the amendment. It talks about mandating sweeps, or having like written in the town charter that sweeps are a prime option for clearing out encampments in our parks. The resolution has a variety of these things mentioned, talking about the costs that would realistically, that the city of Seattle would need to pay to have the amount of units that would actually house the number of people living in Seattle and King County, to have housing without any sort of funding. And then, and then for anyone that doesn't know, House Our Neighbors is the opposition campaign that has arisen in opposition to this charter amendment. It's a coalition of people from a variety of backgrounds, notably the Lived Experience Coalition, which are people who are currently experiencing homelessness, as well as the ACLU, Real Change, and a lot of other homeless advocacy organizations are campaigning against this charter amendment, with running on a basis of expanding tiny house villages, RV safe lots, and wraparound services, hygiene centers, and other more humane and compassionate solutions to homelessness than sweeps of encampments. Yeah, so therefore be it resolved is that the 43rd District Democrats endorse House Our Neighbors in opposition to Charter Amendment 29, that we endorse their recommendations that Seattle's solution to homelessness must be driven by experts and those who are homeless or have experienced homelessness, and not big businesses and millionaires alone, which is where Compassion Seattle is coming from. And then finally, that this resolution be sent to the other legislative districts in Seattle to widen support for House Our Neighbors against Charter Amendment 29.
Great, thank you, Camille. Andrea, I see your hand is up.
Yes, thank you, Scott. I have a question. When I read the charter amendment, it basically has, I think, one sentence that talks about moving people. I mean, obviously it doesn't use the word sweeps. And my take on it was that it's no different than what the current policy is in terms of moving people if they're like camping in a place that's either dangerous or illegal in the sense of like a sidewalk or something like that. So, I mean, it seems like that's the biggest objection, but yet it doesn't seem to me like it's any different than what we currently have. So am I misreading this?
It's not much different than what the current city municipal government is doing. And that's kind of the point, that they're trying to get it written into the city charter, which in and of itself is an odd way to go about things. So they're basically trying to get what the government has been doing and making it like the policy, the practice of the city, that from here on out, that is how we are going to do things. We displace people from encampments, which in reality, like we know, does not work. It sends people from one park to another park to another park, and it's never a permanent solution. And so the point is that, yeah, it's not a lot different than what the government is currently doing. But it like makes it policy of the government.
Yeah, thanks, Camille. Al. And just so everybody's aware, this is a good time for questions, and we'll do speeches for and against once we've gotten through some questions. So if you're interested in speaking for or against, we will get to that shortly. Al, go for it.
Sure. Two questions. One, what is the exact language that says this amendments for sweeps in the charter amendment? And two, is there nothing good about this amendment? For example, I've heard it forces the city to pay for 2,000 units of permanent supportive housing. Is that true, or is that not true?
So for the first question, the language referring to displacement. So in I believe it's section 3, it says the city may take actions to ensure that parks, playgrounds, sports fields, public spaces, and sidewalks and streets, public spaces remain open and clear of unauthorized encampments. The city shall develop policies and procedures to address those individuals who remain in public spaces. In those circumstances where the city does not close an encampment, the city may still require individuals to shift their belongings in any structures to ensure safety, accessibility, and to accommodate the use of public spaces.
So how is this saying anything different than you can't block a sidewalk, or you can't camp in the middle of a softball field where people are trying to play softball?
It's saying that I mean it's exactly what like we said to Andrea, it's what the current government is doing. It's sweeping, sending people to sweep, or sending police to sweep parks.
It doesn't mention police.
That's how the sweeps are done.
But it doesn't mention sweeps. Right, so you're assuming things that they're gonna do as opposed to what the language actually says, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna jump in here just to say, it sounds like we're getting a little into debate.
Okay, I just wanted, okay, we're clear on that point. I'm curious about the second point, which is there anything positive in this charter amendment? Like this claim for 2,000, funding for 2,000 houses, or requirement that 2,000 supportive houses being built?
So yeah, the positive things the things that people have brought up that are positive is that it's theoretically forcing the city to do something about homelessness. But as mentioned, they're saying that the city is required to pay for these things, but there's no proposed, where is that coming from in the budget? There's nothing in the charter amendment that says where that funding should come from.
Okay, so the main complaint is they haven't specified a funding mechanism in the charter.
And that they are mandating the inhumane practice of sweeping homeless encampments. Those are the main complaints, yes.
Okay, to be clear, I'm also not a fan at all of governing through charter amendments, but we also have been stuck with doing nothing for now like a decade.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering what it's going to take to change things.
Yeah, Al would love to have you come back and
Okay,
do a formal.
that's it for now.
supervise if
Yeah.
that's- Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Great. I see Jane with your hand up. And again, just asking for questions right now. Thanks, everybody. Jane, go for it.
Thank you. Both in what you've said, Camille, and in the resolution, it says, you've said, and the resolution says, this is a permanent thing from this point forward, the charter amendment will be in place. It's my understanding, and I think the language is pretty clear, that the charter amendment sunsets in 6 years, which is the case.
I don't have that information.
You have the language of the charter amendment on your screen. I can get it, but it's hard for me. If you
I can pull it up, yes.
it might be in the chat. Somebody put it in the chat. Yeah, Scott put it in the chat, or he put a link in the chat. It says, this Article 9 shall sunset and become null and void on December 31st, 2027. So isn't that the case?
Yes.
So we need to stop saying this is from this point forward. It's for the next 6 years. So that's all.
Sure, thanks. Okay, any other questions that folks have? Any other questions? Okay, not hearing any. All right, so we can move to our formal debate on this. So the way, I'll just go through the rules really quickly so that we all know how they work. We have multiple resolutions coming up. So we will have 3 speakers for and against. I'm going to limit folks to a minute each, just so we can get through everyone. And we have 5 resolutions to get through. So I really want to make sure we're moving through things. Maddie has found us a timer, which will count down to a minute for these. So we'll take 3 on each side. If there ever isn't someone willing to argue for a particular side, then we will move to voting. So with that, I will look for speakers for. If I could have folks raise their hands, that would be helpful. And I will just get a list of folks who are willing to speak for. I have one who has direct messaged me. Another, all right, we have Dave, Paul, and then any other speakers for? Kelsey. Great. All right, you all can put your hands down. And then are there speakers against? All right, Jane. Any other speakers against? Andrea, is that a request to speak against? All right, yeah, Andrea and Al. Okay, great. Okay, cool. So we will we'll go through that list of speakers. Dave Schultz, you're up.
Yes, I'm speaking for this amendment. Compassion Seattle is an unfunded mandate. When anybody tells you you don't need any additional funding to do something, they are lying. if anybody was at the debate that the 43rd district held, they lied. We are already building 2,000 units of housing. I am working as my real job on them as a steel detailer. Numerous apartment buildings are going up. So this is a bad deal. And I think the biggest indication that it's trouble is the ACLU is against it. And it's a political decision. And if y'all want to solve the homeless problem, y'all are going to have to put up with some upzoning in your neighborhood, your single family neighborhoods, and you're going to have to get involved with city council to do something about it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. All right, up next is Jane.
The main point I want to, well, I have a lot of points. If you haven't read the charter amendment, you really should do it, or you shouldn't vote. Sorry. There I am. And I think that the point that I made before, that this, in fact, the charter amendment does sunset, and that people who've put forth this resolution didn't even include that, aren't even aware of that. It makes it real clear that there's a lot going on in this amendment that we aren't paying attention to. The point about the people behind this amendment, and what they believe in doesn't really matter. What matters is that the amendment requires the council and the mayor to do something, and it requires them to do all those other things in addition to sweeps. So that's
Okay.
my time.
Sure, yeah, thanks, Jane. Okay, up next is Paul Chapman.
Hi, I actually am going to agree here with Jane that there's a lot going on in this charter amendment that we're not paying attention to. Namely, what this is it's a ploy by the downtown businesses to sweep the city, while at the same time, they are trying to block the funding that the city council has passed that is already being used for homelessness and housing. So we have this very cynical ploy by business interests to both continue to terrorize our homeless neighbors and to block additional revenue that's already been passed by the council. In addition, what we heard at the meeting was the lie that there is no more additional revenue needed, but there is additional revenue needed in order to build the housing that we need.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Up next is, oh, sorry, Maddie, you had something you wanted to share with folks.
Yes, just really quickly, a total Zoom logistical question, but if you are speaking for and against, if you want a spotlight, please make sure to turn on your video, or else I can't spotlight you. If you don't want to, more than okay, you're more than happy to speak. Just know that we won't be able to put you on the screen, and it'll just be Scott. So yeah, just wanted to flag that for folks. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Maddie. I appreciate that. All right, Andrea, you are up.
Okay, 2 points. One is about the budget. This is a charter amendment, and so it would be inappropriate to put the budget in there. It basically is just saying that this has to be a priority, and that in the budgeting process, this is what the council and mayor need to do. But to answer the question about, is there anything good about it? The key thing that I thought was good about it is that it requires substance abuse and behavioral health, that we provide these things in a way we haven't done before. And there's nothing that says it negates the money that's already been allocated. So I didn't understand Paul's point.
Okay, thanks, Andrea. Appreciate that. All right, up next we have Kelsey Hamlin. I appreciate folks sticking to the time, by the way. Thanks very much.
I think we should be good. Yeah, so I'm speaking for supporting House Our Neighbors resolution, primarily because the top contributors for Compassion Seattle include George Petrie, also John Goodman, CEO of Goodman Real Estate that has $2.5 billion in 350 assets over 4 countries. So these aren't small players with no agenda, right? Additional contributors include Martin Smith Inc., Vulcan, a very large developer that many people are familiar with, John Hemingway and Christopher Larson. These are people that actively wanted the Seattle City Council to repeal the head tax, are in fact appealing the court's decision on the head tax right now that would have funded affordable housing, that would have funded solutions for homelessness. So when it comes to the backers of this language that does displace people, we can pretty clearly see where their agendas lie. So that is why I'm supporting House Our Neighbors.
Yeah, thanks, Kelsey. All right, up next and our last speaker is Ali.
Okay, so I'm probably the weakest pro argument for this, mostly because I just heard from Nicole Macri, she's opposed to it, and I always do what Nicole Macri says when it comes to not to the resolution, but the charter amendment. Always do what Nicole Macri says about homeless things. And so the fundamental thing I want to have happen is that we actually build permanent supportive housing. I have seen the city council, let's say dick around for the last 10 years and get nowhere on this. I've gotten very, very limited. There have been a couple of good program buildings built or currently being built in the context of like emergency downtown services and other organizations, but it's not enough. And so I am still on the fence whether we need this kick in the butt to force additional action, or whether this will just, as Nicole relayed to me, the concern is it will just cause too much litigation and not push things forward. So I'm pretty on the fence, but we need to do something to move things forward.
All right, thank you, Al. Great, thanks to all of our speakers. Really appreciate it. Annabelle, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, it's a point of clarification, I guess. The resolution is to either, if the resolution is adopted, the 43rd would endorse a no position on Charter Amendment 29. If the resolution is not adopted, then the 43rd is basically does nothing. So I just wanted to make that clear, since I've seen from some of the debate that might not have been clear. What we are going to be voting on is endorse no or do nothing.
Correct. So thank you for that clarification. It is very timely as we are going to move to voting now. My hope is that folks have been able to get their voting codes and have those handy. If you do not have your voting code, again, email tally@43democrats.org, or you can message Cody Olson or Tara Gallagher, since we're about to start voting now. So Annabelle, are you able to share the form for voting on this resolution?
I am, and I just did. I even sent it to everyone this time.
Great, thank you for that. And could you explain the options to folks just one more time?
Yes. This is a little bit confusing because we're voting on a resolution to endorse no. So if you look at the ballot form, you will see that there are 2 options to choose from. It's not your typical yes or no, because that's confusing here. The 2 options are to endorse a no position or to do not endorse a no position. So again, this is endorse no or do nothing.
Thank you, Annabelle. Paul, you have your hand up. And if folks have questions, please ask them. I want to make sure we're clear on this.
I don't know how to Robert rules this, but I'm just wondering if there's people who would like additional discussion, debate of this before we actually vote. I don't know if that's appropriate to ask or anything like that, so tell me to shut up. So
no, that is something that can be asked for under our rules. sorry, I'm trying to pull up our rules, which I have.
It is.
We vote on continuing debate. It's a majority vote.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, and that's just, Tara, that's just a majority vote, right? To extend debate. Great. So is there a second to that motion to extend debate? Jane, that's a second. Okay. Great. So
That wasn't a second.
Oh, that was not a second.
No, I had a question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. If you could hold your question briefly.
Okay.
Did I have a second from somebody else that I heard? Efren, is that a second from you?
That is a second.
Okay, great. All right, I'm seeing some seconds. All right, so with that, I don't believe that this is debatable. Is that correct, Tara?
That's correct. Just
okay.
Move on to the vote.
Yep. All right. So we're going to vote. We're not going to vote on this using voting codes because that's going to take too long. So I would ask everybody if you can vote using the reactions button and vote with the green check mark, the yes. If you would like to extend debate, and we'll just say we're going to extend for another round. So 3 speakers for and 3 against. And then if you do not want to extend debate, please vote no by using the red X. And we'll give everyone a minute to get those put in there. All right, I see a question from someone named Happy. Hello, if you could rename yourself so that we know who you are, that would be great. Okay, and I'm sorry, I'm seeing a couple folks asking where the reactions buttons are. They are down, they should be down at the bottom of your screen. There is a kind of a smiley face with a plus symbol there. I'm seeing folks do not, okay. Are the folks who don't have reactions, are you able to raise your hand? Thanks for hanging with us, everybody. Okay, so there are folks who are messaging the chat, and I'm wondering, you are not able to raise your hand either. Okay, sorry, I think there is some confusion going on because we are voting on 2 things at once here. We are voting on, currently we are voting on extending debate. If you have already made up your mind and you have voted using your voting code, that's great. Thank you for doing that. We will get to that briefly. Your vote will count for that. What I'm trying to get a handle on right now is if we want to spend more time debating this resolution before we move on to voting on it. So currently there are 9 in favor of doing so and 7 against. I am oh, thank you, Cassandra. I think there are 2 different Zoom clients that may have these buttons in different places. So for me, it is at the bottom of my screen. There's a reactions tab. For others, it will be, okay, so some versions of Zoom don't have any reaction codes. There are 2 options only for many of us. All right, so are the folks, Andrea, are you able to vote by raising your hand? I think you've raised your hand previously, correct?
Yeah, I have them. I just know from being in other Zooms, some people had none of those buttons. That was my understanding, and it had either something to do with the version of Zoom that they had downloaded or their own device.
Okay, yeah, that it is very likely related to the version of Zoom. Okay, so what I'm going to ask for here is if I see 11 votes for extending debate and 6 against, if folks could put in the how do we want to do this, Tally and Tech Committee? I think folks are able to chat, so
Can we just do a hands up for yes, clear hands, hands up for no?
yes, I think that should work. I'm concerned that some folks might not be able to raise their hand. Are the folks who don't have reactions able to raise their hand in Zoom? They are not. Okay. Sorry, everybody. I thought that we were on the same page here, or that we all had access to the same things. We clearly do not. Okay. So thanks to everybody for voting. So I see 10 votes in favor of extending debate. There are 3 up. So here, if everybody could vote using reactions who is able to do that right now, that would be great. And then we will take votes from other folks who are not able to vote using reactions.
And this is a yes, no reaction, correct?
And this is a yes, no reaction, correct. So the folks who are sharing thumbs, I do not know what your vote is for. That's a good way we will go through and get your votes individually at this point. So, all right, has everybody voted on using their reactions? Okay, I had 13 to 9 there. Please leave those up if needed. And then the folks, we will just go through one by one who aren't able to do that. Dawn, you had trouble voting that way.
I cannot vote for the links, but I vote to extend the debate.
Okay. Great. Other folks who aren't able to vote, I'm seeing John, you have a different reaction.
I'd vote no to extend, thanks.
Okay. Others, Vincent, you were having trouble voting.
Yes, I vote for extending the debate.
4, okay.
And I have a question when we can get to it. I can't raise my hand, so.
Okay, yep, thanks for that. All right, so I currently have the tally at 15 to 10. I'm not aware of 5 other people who still need to vote. So I'm going to call this in favor of extending debate. Okay, thank you, everybody. We will work behind the scenes on getting that set up, or getting a better way to take the next vote via chat. So with that, I am looking for another speaker in favor of endorsing House Our Neighbors. All right, lots of hands up there. Jesse Murray, you are first.
Thanks, Scott. So I think there are a couple of things here. One, this is a charter amendment. It was a deliberate decision to make this a charter amendment such that the funding mechanism for this could not be included with the bill. I think that's a deliberate obfuscation of how this is going to be funded. There are not enough housing units that are included in this to actually address the issue, which, as mentioned previously, this is going to get tied up in a lot of litigation. Additionally, there's been a lot of talk about, does this just preserve the status quo, et cetera? The sweeps are bad. And even when they are used in ways as, there's obstruction, et cetera, often that's used as an excuse to move people down the street. And even if it's given a kind of mundane explanation, and baking it into the charter amendment or into the charter in this way makes it really hard to actually do anything about the sweeps before that sunset. So I would urge us to stand with our houseless neighbors and support this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Jesse. So then I'm looking for a speaker against, and that would be, I see Amy Madden's hand is up, but I think Amy is speaking for. Are there other speakers against endorsing or against passing this resolution? Jane, we have another speaker against. So I believe that folks are able to go able to speak twice if there's nobody else who is interested in doing so. So Jane, go for it.
Two things. I just reiterate that we are, many people are commenting against this because of what the people who put the charter amendment forward, who they are, how wrong-headed they are, and so on and so forth. And I think we need to pay attention to what the words in the charter amendment are. The other thing I want to do is be absolutely clear. We're talking about a resolution. We're speaking for and against the resolution, but the vote that we're going to take in a minute is for and against the charter amendment. And it's the exact backwards. We have to be, everybody's got to be real clear about that. That if you vote, if you're speaking for now, you're really against the charter amendment. And if you're speaking against now, you're really for the charter amendment. So, or against doing anything about it.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, for clarifying that. Yes, that is important to keep in mind. Annabelle, I see your hand is up.
Thank you for unmuting me. Yes, to the point that was just made, if you look at the ballot form, you will find it doesn't ask yes, no, it doesn't ask, are you in favor of the resolution? Specifically because it is confusing, right? The resolution is a no position. So the options when you cast your ballot are endorse a no position or do not endorse a no position.
Yes, thanks for that clarification. All right, Amy, you are our next speaker for.
Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Amy Madden. I'm your state committee representative to the Washington State Central Committee. I'm speaking very strongly against this charter amendment in part because I am a survivor of childhood homelessness in the Seattle area. And what helped my family get off the streets and out of a tent was housing. It was adequately funded housing for families. And we need to be really clear when we're talking about putting more funds towards sweeping. Every penny of that is a penny that could have been spent on housing. We need to think about where this money would be pulled from. And I think we all know we need to be raising the funds to pay for more housing, and we need big business to pay their fair share instead of pushing measures like this that put the burden on others. Yes, I really urge you to oppose this charter amendment.
All right, thank you, Amy. Up next, we need another speaker against. Vincent, is that you?
I just had a question.
Sure, go for it.
An appropriate time. Did the House Our Neighbors folks propose an alternative amendment? Because I am concerned that people are going to just say we need to do something, anything.
Sure. Yeah, I'll just take this one. There is not an alternative charter amendment. I think the House Our Neighbors folks coalition would say that they have a lot of ideas for how to address our homelessness crisis that they would prefer we enact. Okay, is there another speaker against Is there another speaker against endorsing a no position on Charter Amendment 29? Another speaker against. Al.
Hello. Since nobody else wants to take it, I mean, literally I've done extremely little research, but it is interesting that, so I'm very much opposed to the idea of what I'll call ad hominem rejections of proposals, simply because the people who propose them are people you don't like. And on the flip side, if you actually go to their site, the people who at least have quotes being positive about the Charter Amendment include like the executive director of Plymouth Housing and the executive director of the Seattle, I think it's called the Downtown Emergency Center, which are both groups that work in homelessness today. And so maybe they're taken out of context. Maybe these aren't what they really meant to say. Maybe they have a different point of view that's more corporate than other housing advocates for the homeless. But it's a really bad idea to just say, because it's people that we don't like, we should reject what they propose. We should actually read it and decide whether or not it makes sense. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Al. I see Jesse, your hand is up. Is that for a question? Is it not intended to be up?
I just, I don't know if this is in order. I wanted to do just a point of information.
Sure, what is your point of information?
I think it is worthwhile to note in response to Al talking about the quotes on the website that previously that website had a list of endorsements that were a list of organizations that had not in fact agreed to endorse the Charter Amendment, and then they updated it to be these quotes. I think there is a big grain of salt to hold on to with
Yes.
regard to that because of that.
Sure. Take your information. All right, Representative Frank Chop, I see your hand is up. Would you like to speak in favor of endorsing a no position?
Yes, I'm in favor of the resolution and opposed to the Amendment 29. I appreciate people's interest in this. Is extremely important topic, but this resolution should pass and we should oppose the Amendment 29. I would request, Scott, if Nicole Macri and I could present ideas to the 43rd District at the next meeting for a limited amount of time. There are much better solutions to deal with chronic homelessness. In fact, Nicole and I are working on many of those to build on our success from this last session. For example, there's $400 million we've made available for King County to literally buy up apartment buildings and hotels for permanent supportive housing for the chronically homeless. That was already approved. They're literally buying up the hotels right now. Also, I started a program called Home and Hope, which is identifying and has acquired like 20 major sites for siting of affordable housing, particularly permanent supportive housing. And the last idea, which I think is a game changer potentially, is to make it related to healthcare. Why are people chronically homeless? A lot of it has to do with issues of healthcare. And I'm proposing a prescription for a home so that a doctor or a nurse practitioner at a community health clinic could actually write the prescription and the money would follow the prescription to give people a home that need it desperately because of their healthcare situation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And appreciate your and Nicole's work in the legislature on solutions. And yes, we will invite you back. There's clearly a lot of interest in ways we can solve this. So would love to hear more from you both. Okay, is there one last speaker against passing this resolution? Any other speaker? We do not have to have a final speaker. Okay, seeing none, we will move to voting on the resolution itself now. Thank you everybody for all the good points that folks made during debate. Annabelle, could you please reshare the voting link? And then folks will want to go to that link, use your voting code, and then Annabelle, if you could, excuse me, if you could also just explain what we were voting on again, that would be great.
Thank you. Yeah, once again, I know this is confusing. The resolution is to endorse a no position. And so if you support the resolution, you're saying that you want to endorse no on Charter Amendment 29. If you look at the ballot, you will see the two options are endorse no on Charter Amendment 29 and do not endorse no on Charter Amendment 29. So that's hopefully that's clear as to what the meaning is there.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Annabelle. I see. So I'm going to leave the voting on this open for 5 minutes, we'll say, so till 8:07. I'm going to ask Jeff and Amy if they have questions about voting that we can discuss. Jeff.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I put in my vote just before somebody asked to lengthen the debate. I just want to make sure that my vote is still been recorded and anybody else's is still recorded if they did the same.
Yes, they are.
Great. Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Amy.
Sorry, it took a moment to unmute. So I just want to make sure folks know that the last ballot you get in is the one that is counted. So if for any reason you want to change your vote, you can just go to the link, fill out the ballot again, and the last ballot is the one that will get counted. That's all. Thanks.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Amy. So we're going to take another 4 minutes. And during that time, let's actually hear from our representatives. You heard from Representative Chop there briefly. Representative Macri, would you like to say hi to folks?
Yeah, thanks so much, Scott, and thank you, everyone. And thanks, Frank, for those comments and that offer. I'm really would be glad to talk in more detail. I just wanted to introduce myself for those of you who may not know me. I'm Nicole Macri, along with Frank Chop, one of your state representatives in the legislature. And just to give you a quick update, Frank and Jamie Peterson, our senator, and I presented a couple months ago about the outcomes of the legislative session. I have been, and I know Frank and Jamie similarly, have been doing a lot of follow-up work. It was really a tremendous session where we passed pretty significant policy and significant increases in the state budget. And timely to be talking about a resolution related to homelessness. We passed a budget that included over $2 billion in new state funding to both build housing and respond to homelessness and people who are housing unstable. And so I've been doing a lot of work following up on that landmark investment to make sure that those dollars are getting out the door. What I'm hearing is that across the state and definitely here in Seattle, that moving quickly to deploy those resources have been a challenge. That is in part because our nonprofit community is stretched to the max. Having worked through the pandemic, our healthcare workers are stretched to the max. And so scaling up some of these interventions has been going somewhat more slowly than we thought. I've also been talking with a lot of renters as we transition off the eviction moratorium towards long-term policy that is intended to be protective of renters. And so, and a number of other things, but I just want to put a plug in because we're talking about housing and homelessness of those particular things that I've been working on. And so if anyone would like to talk about those policies with me or those investments, you can reach out to my office. You can reach out to me personally. So I'll put my contact information in the chat so you can reach me. And I'm always glad to talk about that or other things, including car electrification, as my sweatshirt so appropriately says. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And Representative Chop, we just heard from you briefly, but if you want to say a few words as well, that'd be great.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, what I wanted to say, I've already said in terms of the issue of homelessness, but I do want to ask Nicole if she could send me another of those T-shirts or sweatshirts, or I'd like to sign, because I was your number 2 signing on that bill. That's the way the future is electric in terms of dealing with carbon emissions. But I really do request that Nicole and I help present some ideas to the 43rd District soon, because it's timely, because not only because of this charter amendment discussion, but also in terms of preparing for next session. So we need ideas from other folks, including the members of the 43rd District, about the issue of housing of the homeless. Because if you ask the public what their top concern is right now, it's housing and homelessness in Seattle. So thanks for letting us say a few words there, Scott. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you both for attending and sharing with us. And we will, hold you to it, and we'll carve out some space to have that conversation. Our September meeting sounds really exciting. We'll have it sounds like we'll have our 2 reps, and then we'll have some other endorsements votes as well. So looking forward to seeing you all there as well. So Annabelle, do we have the votes for? Are votes still coming in from the resolution?
The ballot is still open. I haven't seen any new votes come in a few minutes, so I can close it.
Great. Yeah, that sounds great. And will you have the results ready for us, or should we start on the next resolution?
Let me just double check. Yes, I have the votes ready now. The results ready. Do you want me to screen share or just read?
It would be great if you could share your screen.
I can do that.
And just to remind everyone, this will take a 60% threshold for us to pass the resolution and endorse a no position.
All right, as you should see, endorsement no on Charter Amendment 29. 48 total ballots. Endorse no received 37 votes, 77.08%. Do not endorse no received 11 votes, 22.92%. And so that endorse no clears the 60% threshold.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So we have endorsed the no position on Charter Amendment 29 and simultaneously, I guess, endorsed and signed on to the House Our Neighbors campaign. I appreciate the debate that everybody had. Thanks so much for that. I'm glad we were able to take some time to really discuss the pros and cons of that. Okay, so moving through the rest of our agenda, we're a little behind where we thought we were, but I think the rest of these resolutions are a little more straightforward. So up next, we have a resolution to endorse the Whole Washington Initiative, I-1362. This was submitted by David Schultz for a 3rd member. And so I believe there is somebody here from the Whole Washington campaign to discuss that with us. Is that correct, Dave?
Yes, Catherine Lewandowski, if you would like to step up, now is your chance.
Okay, hopefully you guys have had a chance to read the resolution, because I haven't, to be honest. I was collecting signatures all day long today. So anyway, my name is Catherine Lewandowski. I'm on the board of Whole Washington, and I'm a registered nurse. I've been a registered nurse here in Washington for 30+ years. And so I've been very active with Whole Washington's plan to get universal health care for everyone in Washington ever since I-1600, and leading and along with our Senate bills 5222 and 5204, which even after a pandemic, 5204 was not able to get any kind of hearing in the healthcare committee. So we filed an initiative to the legislature so that they cannot keep ignoring it any longer, and we'll have to address it. So this is for as close to a single payer plan as we can achieve until we are able to obtain the federal waivers that would be necessary to incorporate some of the other federal funds. And it saves our state $5 to $9 billion a year. And all of our residents of Washington would have health care not attached to their place of work. It would be healthcare that is comprehensive with no copays, no deductibles, except for possibly a $250 copay if you choose to use a brand name pharmaceutical when there is a generic equivalent. It's for 95% of our population, they would save money, and you can actually go on their website and plug in your numbers and see how much it would cost you. And then the top 5% would pay more. For people like me, it would be about the same. You know, it's no more, no less. So it's really good for our economy. It's good for our small businesses because they would be able to afford to cover all of their employees, which makes them more competitive with the larger employers for good employees. It's good for our larger businesses because they're now able to compete with international companies and save, because our international companies are spending half what our companies have to pay for healthcare benefits currently. So, and their employees are healthier because they have no restrictions on going to the doctor when they feel like they need it. It's good for our providers because unlike Medicaid, when you're moving everybody over to Medicaid, Medicaid has a very poor reimbursement for our providers. And so most providers have to limit the amount of Medicaid clients that they will accept. This increases their reimbursement. And so every provider in the state would become in network. And I think that helps to improve quality too, because you're not stuck with that provider. If you don't like that provider, you can find another provider. It's really great for our seniors. I really love how it helps our seniors, especially our low income seniors, because if they're less than 200% of the poverty level, all of their Medicare premiums would be reimbursed. So I hope that you I hope that you can go to our website at wholewashington.org and review all the information there and find a place to sign on. It's going to be really, really tough to get signatures, and all the endorsements we can get just really helps. But, you know, it's a pandemic, and, you know, there's not a lot of big things for us to go to, and it's going to kind of be incumbent on people taking the initiative to find a place to sign our initiative, I think. And I do have to say too that the conservative side has done a really good job of convincing a lot of people that this is socialism, and it's not. I wish it was. We could save even more if it was socialism, but but it's not. So and our Americans would not go for that anyway. But if you have any questions, please ask.
Yeah, thanks so much, Catherine, for explaining Whole Washington. Yeah, and if folks have any questions about the resolution or the Whole Washington proposal, now is the time to ask them. Any questions from folks? All right. Not seeing any questions. I think folks are at least somewhat familiar with Whole Washington from previous go-arounds. Oh, Lisa.
Hi, sorry, I just have a question. I was wondering, will this take like a critical mass, a number of employers or people signing up for it to be successful, or even be, you know?
Well, it does have a transition period in the fact that until 51% of the state signs on to it, then it's all voluntary. But we don't consider that a problem. Once 51% of the state signs on, then it kind of becomes a mandatory thing. And then the board that's created for the trust also has the ability to, if any business feels like it's going to be a hardship for them, they will create hardship rules, trust to do that. So, but one of our biggest consumers of healthcare that would be saving the most money is the state of Washington, because the state of Washington purchases a lot of healthcare for their employees and for their a lot of our residents. So.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Catherine. Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Okay, not seeing any. I'm going to count Catherine's introduction as a speech in favor. I think she covered a lot of the bases of why whole Washington is a good idea. So I will ask if there is anyone interested in speaking against the resolution and the idea of endorsing whole Washington. It's okay if there's no one against, so we'll move to a vote. But is there anyone against? Anyone against? All right, not seeing any. I will ask if there is any objection to us passing this resolution by unanimous consent and endorsing whole Washington. Is there any objection? Is there any objection? Okay, seeing none, we have passed this resolution and endorsed the whole Washington initiative. So thanks so much, Catherine, for joining us. I hope folks will go to wholewashington.org. And Catherine, maybe what's the best way for folks to plug in if they're interested in helping to gather signatures with the initiative? Oh, you're not unmuted just yet. I'm trying to get that figured out.
The best way is to go to the website and sign up as a volunteer. Or you can, yeah, that's the best way.
Okay.
The easiest way. Okay.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks so much. And yeah, I encourage folks to go do that. Okay, up next we have a, sorry everyone, my browser is being very slow at the moment. We have another resolution. I am not able to see what it is because my browser has frozen. I believe all right, it is the resolution to support the Pay Up campaign for Washington's gig workers. I believe this came from our 43rd Policy Committee. So Camille, are you able to introduce it, or if there is someone here to speak for it, that would be great.
Yeah, so this was written by one of our policy committee members who wasn't able to make it today. And so we have Sage from Working Washington who is going to explain a bit about the resolution and the campaign.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Sage Wilson with Working Washington. We're a statewide workers' rights organization. Thanks for having me up I'm out in the 34th district myself right now, but thanks for the cross-city appearance. You know, in Working Washington, we work on issues like the fast food strikes that helped spark the Fight for 15 here, secure scheduling for retail and fast food workers, the Domestic Workers Bill of Rights, and all kinds of other labor standards. We're focused on lifting up workers, hundreds of thousands at a time in our state who are excluded from basic protections. We've also, one of those campaigns that this is about today is we've organized, you know, more than 10,000 gig workers here in Washington and across the country as part of our Pay Up campaign for gig workers' rights. And with that base, what we've done is we've done things including taking on and reversing some tip stealing policies from Instacart, the grocery delivery app, and DoorDash, one of the big restaurant delivery apps. We've crowdsourced a bunch of data to show just how far below minimum wage pay is on these apps. We've been working on this new app, GoPuff, which is a sort of instant snack and alcohol delivery service that has some pretty appalling practices. Last year, we won some gig worker hazard pay and sick days laws here in Seattle last year. And those laws, just to note, are the only laws that I'm aware of in the entire country that have successfully moved money from gig companies to gig workers. We're talking at least more than $5 million in settlements in the city of Seattle alone over the past year on those two emergency standards. But that's all sort of background. So what obviously we need now going forward is not just emergency standards, but permanent solutions to this really fast growing piece of the economy. So what we're fighting for here and what we're hoping you will endorse as a first step is, you know, first in the nation policies here in Seattle that would transform conditions for gig workers by ensuring a minimum wage and other basic protections for everyone who works in Seattle, regardless of whether the contractor that hires them, whether the company that hires them calls them an employee or a contractor. And that's sort of the key thing, the key trick these gig companies play is they decree that you're a contractor rather than an employee, and then therefore exclude you from minimum wage, exclude you from all kinds of other basic protections and pay you whatever they want. And there's not been a lot of successful enforcement of those against that other than the Seattle emergency law. So that's what this is, as we see what this main issue is here, that there's already, at least 30 or 40,000 people working in the city of Seattle on apps, again, like DoorDash, Instacart, Uber Eats, Rover, TaskRabbit, Grubhub, et cetera. Like, we're delivering food, walking dogs, stocking shelves and washing dishes, even on staffing apps, assembling furniture, and a whole range of other jobs, but who just don't benefit from the basic labor standards that Seattle has really been a leader on in so many other ways, just because the companies that hire them classify them as independent contractors. And it's, of course, I think worth noting and not a coincidence that the gig workers excluded from the basic protections of Seattle's labor standards are especially likely to be immigrants, workers of color, LGBTQ workers, disabled workers, and from other historically excluded groups. So this is yet another way in which our economy and the powerful multi-billion-dollar companies are sort of picking and choosing who is covered and who is not covered by basic standards. So, and the way it is going right now, we have a system where if you work in Seattle and you're delivering food, you could be an employee of the restaurant. And if you're an employee of the restaurant, you're an employee of Domino's delivering pizza, you're protected by minimum wage as an employee. You're getting paid at least $16.69 an hour. You're getting paid for your driving expenses. And you have those basic protections. But if you are doing the same job, but hired by DoorDash, you're getting paid only $1.45 an hour after expenses, we found, and excluded from basic law protection. So, when incentives are like that, we sort of know the way in which that's going to head. Pay is going to keep getting lower, rights will keep getting fewer, and the gig economy will continue to grow, excluding more and more workers from these basic critical protections. There was recently a study of corporate executives, a survey, and you can take that for what it's worth, but it was notable to me that 60% of the executives surveyed said they expect to expand their own use of gig workers during the COVID recovery, which makes it a recovery for some, but clearly not all. So, what our campaign and the resolution is about is closing these loopholes that have made the gig economy such a bonanza for the top executives by raising pay to make sure that everyone is getting paid at least a minimum wage after their basic expenses, protecting the flexibility that workers need and depend on, providing basic transparency, and just doing what it takes to make sure that everyone in Seattle has these protections, regardless of how the company hires them, classifies them. So, right now we're making good progress. There's stakeholder meetings in the city that we are attending, workers are attending, and some of the companies are even attending, but we really think it's important to keep it moving, that we can't afford to wait and move slowly until our labor standards are further eroded. And just overall, we can't build an equitable recovery on sub-minimum wages. So, I would love to see the 43rd district help be part of the momentum that moves it all forwards.
Yeah, thanks so much, Sage, for that introduction. So we will take some questions from folks. So Al.
Hi, yeah, so I'm 100% in favor of doing something about gig work. And my question is more about in the details of how you're going to actually move it forward. I'm reading the resolution. And for example, I hired a locksmith to come and fix my lock. And he told me whatever the charge was, $100 or something. And I didn't have to figure out whether or not that was a minimum wage for him when including all his time and effort or not. And so my question is, how do you separate somebody like a locksmith who sets his own wages and actually hopefully gets at least a minimum wage from these kind of people being exploited as gig workers? How do you make that distinction? I'm going to give a completely off the wall example. One cannot invest in a hedge fund, which is an unregulated security product, unless one has a net worth more than $1 million. Is there some minimum cut? Like if people don't have a net worth of $100,000, they can't work as a sole proprietor contractor. And that's a way to prevent these companies from exploiting low income and low wealth workers? Or do you have some other idea? How are you going to actually turn the screw?
I think that's a really perceptive question. The coverage and the policy we're advocating is limited to app-based gig workers. So people who are hired through a third-party app and only through those apps that facilitate or intermediate the transactions. So the locksmith you hired would not be covered by this because unless you hired them through, I don't know that locksmith.com exists or doesn't exist, but in that circumstance where you were hiring the locksmith through an intermediary app, then that app would be the entity that had the responsibility for making sure that that worker was paid at least minimum wage after expenses. So that's the way we're sort of solving for that problem. There's so many different types of contractors and relationships, and we are not wanting to, it's not practical at the city level to wade into quite that level of morass, but for app-based workers being hired through a third-party app, which is intermediating their pay and taking a cut along the way of usually 25, 30%, we think it makes total sense for, in those circumstances, them to be able to be held accountable for making sure people are getting paid at least minimum wage in the same way that any other company hiring any other worker is responsible.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that question and good answer. Paul.
Yeah, follow up on that. So just to make sure I understood this right. So Amazon hires, I believe, hires delivery drivers who will deliver packages for Amazon as gig workers. But I am not hiring somebody to deliver my package through an app. There's other companies out there too that are using gig work, but there isn't an app that's intermediating between me and that worker. I'm just ordering something from this company and they're doing this. Are those employees covered under this as well? Or is it just this, DoorDash, Uber sort of direct me to individual that's covered?
That's another I'm impressed with a super perceptive cutting at the core of the sort of coverage definitions that we've been wrestling with for like a year. So just on the Amazon question, there's like a couple different pieces I want to be clear about. So one is like, Amazon has like a whole series of a whole complicated set of different ways they deliver packages. They have sort of some direct employees, they have franchise delivery stores. They also have what they call Amazon Flex, which is people who would be covered by the policy we're advocating for. And those people who sort of like deliver packages from their own personal vehicles. You are correct that you as the order of Amazon are not directly hiring that worker. We've built the policy so that in those cases, an app which is hiring workers on a gig basis to fulfill needs of the app itself are also covered. Another example of that is Lime Juicers, which is a silly name, but the people who recharge scooters and bikes, or similarly, like me as a scooter rider, I'm not directly hiring somebody to recharge that scooter, although I'm depending on that to happen. But the coverage in that case on this policy that we're advocating for is happening by the fact that Lime or Amazon is hiring people on a contract basis to fulfill orders that way for their own benefit, and that purpose for the coverage definition.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. Are there any other questions? Jeff?
Yeah, I was just struck by your comment about GoPuff, as it's a service that I've used before. So on that note, I was just wondering if you had any information that was either available publicly or that you could provide that has information about how different apps treat their employees or contractors, if you will.
Are we able to unmute Sage?
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, I can drop something in the chat on a recent story on GoPuff in particular. They have a very strange model that is based on just ignoring the law to a more extreme extent than even gig companies normally do. Although, again, as a side note, they have been complying with the Seattle Emergency Hazard Pay Law. So I think it's a good example of a combination of smart, well-designed policy with workers at the center of it, and the robust enforcement capacity that the city of Seattle has can actually get these apps in line. And that's pretty awesome. So I'll shoot that link there right now.
Yeah, thanks for that. Al, and then I think we do need to move on. So this is going to be the last question.
Yeah, just a purely technical question. Reading the resolution, are you baking into the word gig worker that it's this app intermediated, but in a way that the flex worker at Amazon is also covered? How is that? Because when I read gig worker, I just read contractor. And so I'm a little confused about where in the resolution you specify what the kinds of contractors we're supporting you in enforcing this $15 minimum wage, et cetera.
Good question. I think that's probably less in the resolution and how sort of in the policy detail of how the covered gig workers are defined. Which I'm happy to share more detail. It's sort of happening in a few different definitions in terms of what kinds of work is excluded and not, to make sure we're being very broad and clear to cover people who are being underpaid without doing anything silly. But I'm happy to share more details on that, maybe outside of this conversation, but that's sort of where that's happening, is in the legal definitions of what's a covered gig worker in the policy.
Yep. Yeah. Thanks for that. And yeah, would love to share that all out with folks if you get it to us later. All right. So I think Sage has again made a really eloquent case for supporting the campaign. So are there any speakers against endorsing the Pay App campaign? Any speakers against? Any speakers against? All right, not seeing any. Are there any objections to adopting this resolution by unanimous consent? Any objections? Any objections? All right, seeing none, we have adopted this resolution and endorsed the Pay Up campaign. Sage, could you let folks know how they can get involved or what like the next steps are for the campaign?
Sure. I was just gonna thank you all. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna drop in the chat sort of individual sign on, which is the best way to sort of show the support in a way that then will get you wrapped up in our list for sort of additional updates on how we're moving it forward. So we're really hoping to get it done this year in Seattle and really break some new ground for workers' rights.
Yeah, and yes, please share with us anything else in the future, if testifying and such, and we'll get that out to folks. So yeah, really appreciate it. Great. So we still have 2 more resolutions and some other important business. So I really appreciate folks sticking with us. I think these last 2 resolutions will also go relatively quickly. First up is resolution in support of Seattle for Everyone, which has been introduced by Bryce Colton, our membership chair.
Hello, everyone. I know we are running late, so I'll be kind of quick on this stuff. Hopefully the resolution, someone can drop a link to that in the chat. So the resolution spends a lot of whereas clauses talking about the wide diversity of people that are signing up for it, and then launches into a support and the therefore clauses to support the coalition Seattle for Everyone. So this group is a group that is basically trying to get a bunch of the people that we will be voting on in future ballots to support the causes that I'm about to describe. The causes are, and they're included in the resolution because they were short enough to include: 1, create and preserve more housing options in every neighborhood. Increase our shared capacity to effectively and compassionately build a full spectrum of housing. A fundamental contributor to the housing crisis has been gross underproduction, coupled with a legacy of discrimination and restrictive policies. By removing those barriers, we can enable more homes to be built across the city, especially around transit, jobs, and opportunity. 2, support low and middle income affordability. Fund, produce, and preserve a range of housing choices with a special focus on affordable low and middle income homes. Solutions must intentionally provide for affordability. And 3, support equitable development. In all of our efforts, we remember that the lifeblood and vibrancy of our city comes from the empowerment, expression, diversity, and stability of the people, past, present, and future. We believe in supporting and protecting communities at risk of displacement and including everyone in our growth. I was able to speak with the head of the Seattle for Everyone coalition, and the little backroom politics is that we want to try to sign on to the coalitional partners so that our endorsements can gain strength when we go to candidates and ask them, hey, do you support those enshrined properties those enshrined bullet points that I just gave you in your running for whatever position you may be running for in Seattle? I also want to point out that unlike our most recent discussion with Compassion Seattle and that charter amendment, this has a really, really wide diversity of both private and public developers, homeless advocacy groups, transportation and urban advocacy groups, even the Downtown Seattle Association. So to read a couple of them off real quick: You have MLK Labor, the LGBTQ Allyship, Downtown Seattle Association, SMR Architects, Vulcan, the Urbanist. And I can tell you, in my many years of following urban policies and problems within the city, you rarely find these groups all agreeing on such a concise list of policy agendas. So that is the referendum in front of you. We would basically sign on to those stated policy goals. We'll say that we can provide our logo for them to support or to put on their coalitional partners page, and then send this to all sorts of other LDs within the city. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Bryce. And so do folks have questions for Bryce about Seattle for Everyone? Any questions for Bryce? Right, Andrea?
Yeah, my question is, if we approve a resolution like this, is there a time frame? Like, is this just for this election cycle? I mean, I'm trying to think farther into the future how that works.
Yeah, this is a brand new coalition. I'm not sure if they've had actually the time, because the first time I heard about this was only a couple months ago, which is when I believe I was reached out to. So I imagine that such a broad diversity of coalitional partners are not going to let that energy die with just this election. I could certainly see that enshrining these policy points and following through on them is not just like a this election type of thing. It could be a continue to roll the ball until we finally address the homeless crisis and affordability crisis that's threatening our region and ultimately whole country at this point.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce. Other questions? Other questions? All right, seeing no other questions. I think that Bryce again spoke really eloquently about why we should pass this resolution. So we'll count that as a speech in favor. And then I will ask if there is anyone who would like to speak against. Any speakers against? Any speakers against? All right, seeing none, I will ask if there is any objection to passing this resolution by unanimous consent. Any objection to passing this resolution by unanimous consent? Okay, seeing none, we have passed this resolution. Thank you, Bryce. Again, folks can go to the email or the website there to learn more about the coalition. And I know that Bryce and our policy committee will be following up with further actions folks can take. Okay, we have one more resolution on our agenda. This one was submitted after the deadline for resolutions to be submitted to be considered at this meeting, but it is urgent in that it concerns the Sound Transit realignment process, and that is coming up for a vote. I believe it's in August 4th, the first week of August. I might have the date slightly off there. So this is our last chance to consider this. So we need a 2/3 vote in order to decide to consider it at this meeting. And then also we'll need 2/3 in order to pass it. It was brought to us. I agree as chair that it is a time sensitive resolution. So I'm going to ask if there's any objection to considering it tonight. Any objection to considering this resolution tonight? Any objection? All right, seeing none, we will consider this resolution. Thank you all for not having us waste time with an objection and a vote there. So Efren, could you introduce your resolution?
All right, hello again, everyone. Efren. I'm also joined by Bryce Colton and Ben Brosamley. They helped me draft this resolution. So what this is, realignment concerns ST3. For those who don't know, ST3 is the transportation package that was passed by popular vote in 2016. Effectively, it's going to triple the amount of light rail that we have in the region. It's going to add sounder capacity and bus rapid transit. It's the whole works. This is important because transportation issues is not just whether you have a train in your backyard. It touches and embraces housing issues. It touches and embraces equity issues. It touches and embraces climate issues. Realignment is scary because realignment is the process of deciding which projects get completed on time, if at all. August 5th, I believe, is the date. Sorry to correct you, Mr. Chair. I believe it's August 5th is when the Sound Transit Board of Directors is set to vote on the chair's proposals. 4 tiers, ranking projects on whether or not they will be delayed between 2 and up to 10 or more years, effectively canceling them. So the proposal here tonight is to essentially condemn any action taken by the board of directors to delay or postpone or cancel projects that are part of ST3, and to even go further to say we need to start planning for an ST4. This is long overdue. I'm sure there are people that can tell you all about how we have messed this up in the past. We don't get a chance to do this again. So I'm going to keep it brief to that. Ben and Bryce, I'd ask for your help if we get questions that are a little bit outside my depth. This is a very broad and complex topic, but with that, I'll turn it over for questions.
Yeah, thanks so much, Efren. Do folks have questions about this? Any questions? Jane.
I'm sorry if you said this perfectly clearly and I just missed it, but why are they doing this?
Yeah, Bryce, do you want to answer that or?
Yeah, so COVID happened. The economy kind of took a big swan dive, to put it lightly. Sound Transit needs to keep the amount of debt that it has under a certain limit in order to maintain a AAA credit rating from lenders. And that allows them to do all this stuff a lot cheaper than if they had a worse credit rating. That's also mandated by law. They started looking at their forecasts and realized they had a $12 billion hole in their budget. And that was back in, I believe, January. As the economy has bounced back, exceeding some expectations of economists, that hole has now shrunk to about like 6.2 billion was the last estimate. However, and there's also a lot of like stuff going on legislatively. There's talk of a special session coming for the Washington State Legislature. Correct me if I'm wrong, someone else, but I don't believe the legislature, I believe the legislature is one of the only legislatures in all of the states that does not kick any money to Sound Transit. All of the money Sound Transit raises has been the voters being asked, do you want to tax yourself? And voters saying yes, and then collecting directly from voters. This is very rare. Most state legislatures do fund Sound Transit. And now that Sound Transit is very popular, there might be a little bit of a push to provide direct funding from the legislature. At the same time, at the federal level, Congress is considering providing money through an infrastructure bill of some sort. And our senators are very, very good at getting money for Sound Transit through that method. So while we've continued this process from the original $12 billion hole, the hole has both gotten smaller and the outlook of potentially getting external funding has appeared. And so we're still on this track of making this decision when we don't have all of the right information that's most up to date. So we're really pushing Sound Transit to be like, whoa, hold on. Okay, we don't have to make this decision now. All right. It's a fucking climate crisis, excuse me. And we might have the opportunity to collect more information and importantly, more money from more key players as more and more people realize, oh shit, the West is on fire all the time every year. So that is why this resolution is time sensitive, to put it that way.
Yeah, thanks, Bryce, for covering that. Jane, does that answer your question? I see your hand is still up, so I'm not sure if that's just left over or if you have a follow-up. Okay, looks like Jane's hand is down. And then I think Ben was going to help answer that question if need be. Okay, any other questions on this? Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Again, I think Bryce and Efren have both spoken about why this should pass, so we can count that as a speech in favor. Is there a speaker against passing this resolution? Is there a speaker against passing this resolution? Okay, any objection to passing this resolution by unanimous consent? Any objection to passing this resolution by unanimous consent? All right, seeing none, we have passed this resolution as well. Thank you so much, Efren and Bryce. Looks like Bryce has shared some more information there. And again, look out for communications from our policy committee as we approach that August 5th date where they'll be considering making this realignment decision. I really appreciate folks sticking with us through those resolutions. They took a little longer than we may have thought, but I think we also heard from some really important campaigns and organizers and had some really good discussions. So I really appreciate everybody sticking with us on that. All right, so up next, we have 43rd business. Again, we have some really important stuff that we're doing, so I hope folks are able to stick around. Up next is the election of our new 43rd District Democrats Meetings and Events Chair. As many of you know, Morgan McMurray, her last meeting was in June at our endorsements meeting. She is off to grad school. Really appreciate all of her work, and any hecticness in the meeting tonight is likely due to her absence, and the rest of us try to pick up everything that she she helped us with in the past. So we are looking for a new meetings and events chair. I know of one person planning to run, and I will open the floor up for nominations. All right, I see Camille's hand is up. And I will just, before Camille goes, I will just share that anyone who's interested in running, you are able to self-nominate. So just want to open that up to folks as well. Camille, go ahead.
I would like to nominate Cassandra Henning for the position of Meetings and Events Chair.
Okay, thank you, Camille. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations for Meetings and Events Chair? I will give it another go. Any other nominations for Meetings and Events Chair? Okay, seeing none, I will close nominations for our 43rd Meetings and Events Chair. We have one nominee, one candidate, Cassandra Henning. And Cassandra, do you want to, or Cass, do you want to introduce yourself to folks?
Hi, yeah, my name is Cassandra Henning, she, her pronouns. You can also call me Cass. Yeah, thank you for the nomination, Camille. Thank you very much. I know Camille because of her mother. I'm a nurse. I worked at University of Washington University with Shelley. And yeah, from there, like right from the get-go, I joined the Nurses Union, the Washington State Nurses Association, and really appreciated the representation that I got there. I've been in grad school the past couple of years, getting my master's in nursing, management, and leadership. And yeah, now I'm interested in broadening and learning more about Seattle. And yeah, all of you are incredibly intelligent and engaging and so passionate. And I've really enjoyed being here and hearing you debate and question. It's been really great. I am delighted that I'm going to have time to volunteer. I'll be working as a school nurse this fall at Al Sujiyama, also known as South Lake High School, and Whittier Elementary. Yeah, I'm looking forward to being involved, to having some accountability and helping what you all do here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cass. Really appreciate that. So with that, we will move to a vote. And seeing as how there's only one candidate, I am just going to ask again if we can elect Cass as our new Meetings and Events Chair by unanimous consent. So is there any objection to electing Cass as our new Meetings and Events Chair? Any objection? Any objections? All right, seeing none, congratulations, Cass, on your election as our new meetings and events chair. So thanks so much. Really appreciate that, and I'm excited to have you join our board. With that, we are through our election. Up next are committee reports. I will ask folks if they have committee reports. Maybe we can hold those until after our PAC discussion, because we do need to get into that. I'm not aware of any committee reports that we have on deck at the moment. So I'll ask folks after that maybe we can share those during good of the order. Okay, so the next piece of our agenda is the discussion of opening and operating a 43rd District Democrats Political Action Committee. We have a set of proposed bylaws changes, a set of proposed standing rules, and a budget as well. My computer is freezing again, so if somebody on the board is able to share the links to those 3 documents in the chat, that would be helpful. Sorry about that. This is bad timing for things to freeze. So just to give a really brief overview to folks, the 43rd District Democrats are currently organized as a 527 organization under the IRS tax code. We have a bank account. We have around $30,000 in that bank account, thanks to fundraising and all of the work that our board has put in. What we are able to spend that money on straight get out the vote work, voter registration, on things like our Zoom account and party building. But what we can't do is spend any of that money on advancing our endorsed candidates or ballot measures. So for instance, we could send something out like text messages or emails saying the election's coming up August 3rd. Have you got your ballot? Here's how to return your ballot. Make sure you get it in. Postage is not required, and we have been doing that for the past few years. What we could not do is talk to folks and say, the 43rd District Democrats endorsed Teresa Mosqueda for position 8. Please vote for Teresa. So I know that our PCOs have reached out to me and asked, I want to be able to do more to support our endorsed candidates. And in order to do that, we need to open a PAC, a political action committee, that will involve opening a new bank account, fundraising for that bank account specifically. The idea is that we will, once we open a PAC, we will direct our membership dues and any future funds that we raise into that PAC account, which can spend in favor of endorsed candidates and ballot measures. Yeah, so that will give us the ability. I mean, the idea for this upcoming election is that we will print out some sort of literature, either postcards that folks can mail, and or door knocking literature, so that folks can, PCOs can, when they get their walk lists, we can actually provide our PCOs with a list of our endorsed candidates that they can give to voters and talk to voters about why they are supporting those endorsed candidates. So that is the goal of these changes that are in front of you. I can go through them quickly, but I just want to pause really quickly there and take questions from folks about the general idea, the concept of what we're talking about when we're talking about a PAC here. Ben.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm curious, just so if we're organized as a 527, why a 527 is limited in this regard? I know, there's a difference between C3, C4, 527, and I thought 527 had the most leeway, and this is me being a new member and very ignorant of this particular matter.
That's a really good question. So a 527 is not limited in this manner. What is limiting on us is that we are not registered with the Washington State Public Disclosure Commission as a PAC. So we are okay from a federal level to spend in favor of candidates, but we do not have a political action committee, and we have not reported our contributions so far in that 527 org to the PDC. So we are not able to use that money on promoting our candidates. Does that clarify things for you? Realizing we may have muted that again. All right, I see the thumbs up. Great. Okay, any other questions that folks have at this point before we get into the bylaws and the standing rules? And I think what I'm going to do is go through all of these. We can take questions on them. And then rather than having 3 separate votes, I'm going to see if we can maybe condense them. And if there are objections about things, we can pull them out into separate votes. I'm not currently able to load anything on my computer. Again, this is really awful timing. Thank you, Maddie is already to it. Thank you. All right, so you can see on your screen the proposed bylaws changes. I'm just going to go through these very briefly. So this first one is the way to read these, if you have it open yourself, are things that are being removed are struck through in red, and then those that are being added are printed in blue with an underline. So this first change is essentially we had a clause which prevented us from opening a PAC, and this is to change that to allow us to open a PAC, adding a new Article 12 that is referenced. Referenced there. Yes, there is a question about removing the ballot issue. That was, I believe, done in error was someone pointed that out before the meeting, which is why there's a comment there. So if there's no objection to removing that ballot issue strike through, we will go back to that and reinsert that phrase. Is there any objection to doing that? And this is just a small change to make sure we're being consistent. Okay, seeing no objection to doing that, we will reinstate the ballot issue there and unstrike through it. I don't know if Maddie's able to do that herself right now, but maybe other folks are. Okay, Maddie, could you scroll down? Thank you. Okay, so Article 12 is all about political action committees. 12.1 says that we can operate a political action committee provided that the membership adopts rules. You've been brought rules tonight. You will have those to consider as well, and we'll get to those after the bylaws changes. The 12.2 is the adoption of the rules requires a 2/3 vote of members at a meeting, and also requires 10 days of notice before the meeting that the rules will be considered. Could you scroll down more, Maddie? So 12.3 is that the 43rd District Democrats just putting it right in our bylaws that we are either through hiring professional services or software or other means that we are going to follow all applicable local, state, and federal legal and regulatory requirements to ensure that we stay in compliance. That's pretty straightforward, I think. The 12.4 is that we are going to make a good faith effort to limit the volunteer time that is spent on this. It lists some of the activities that volunteer treasurers typically have to take, and then puts a requirement on the treasurer and our finance committee to report to the board if the workload required to operate the PAC is exceeding their volunteer time. Where 12.3 and 12.4 really take into effect is in 12.5, which is in the event that the PAC operated by the 43rd District Democrats fails to meet either 12.3 or 12.4 for 4 months, then we're going to essentially put a pause on the PAC and stop accepting contributions and making expenditures until we either fix that issue until 2/3 of our members agree that we have fixed whichever issue we are falling out of compliance with. So that is this is just a safety valve essentially to say if we aren't able to stay in compliance, then we're going to stop operating a PAC, and that we're giving the treasurer and the finance committee essentially a release valve in order to let us know if the workload becomes too much that they can't keep up, because that's where mistakes tend to be made in these sorts of issues. Annabelle, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, just a clarification on that 12.5 doesn't kick in due to non-compliance with PDC requirements or anything like that. It's intended really to be a check against us getting into a place where we're at risk of becoming non-compliant. So I think the best way to look at 12.3, 4, and 5 is an attempt to manage the risk when you're dealing with an all-volunteer organization, to manage the risk around making sure that we do have somebody who's, and we do have the volunteer hours to maintain our compliance status.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. And Annabelle is our bylaws committee chair and put together this draft for us. So thank you to Annabelle and the other members of our bylaws committee for helping us with that. Are there any questions about the bylaws changes? Ben.
So this is maybe a detailed question, but may the 43rd District Democrats donate any or all of its current funds of, it sounds like $30,000 to this PAC, or would the state requirements disallow that due to the compliance issues?
Yeah, that's a really great question. One we have been working to find the answer to ourselves. Our current understanding is that we are not going to be able to do that. So for the near term future, we will have 2 bank accounts, one which is for the PAC, and then one which is for the existing 527 organization. Quick follow-up from that is we are starting a PAC. We are going to have to make a fundraising push to raise funds if we want to be able to print the literature that we're talking about. So we'll be asking folks for help with that in the future. Look out for more from us on that front. So any other questions that folks have? Any other questions on the bylaws? All right, not seeing any. Maddie, could you take us to the standing rules? Okay, so we have a set of standing rules here for a potential PAC that we would start. They're broken into 2 sections. The first is on reporting, and the second is on how we would spend funds from the PAC. So section 1, part 1, the treasurer is responsible for filing all of the necessary reports by the appropriate deadlines, and the reports may be filed by either the treasurer or their designee. So this is just really making sure that it's clear that the treasurer is the one responsible for making sure that the reports are filed, but that they can get help in filing reports from other folks, the deputy treasurer, the chair, or whoever else might be stepping into that role. Part two is that the 43rd chair, treasurer, and deputy treasurer, and anyone else who is authorized to file PDC reports need to take the PDC provided compliance training at least once every 2 years. That's to ensure that we're up to date on the most recent guidance from the PDC on reporting and spending and all of that fun, detailed stuff that it's really important to get right on this. Part three is the treasurer shall inform the 43rd chair and the finance committee when a report has been submitted, and then the chair is required to verify that that report has been filed with the PDC. This is to just ensure that we are staying on top of filing our reports. This is kind of the easiest way to have a PDC violation, is to be late in filing your required reports. During election season, C3s are required once every week. And then during kind of the off season, reports are required once a month. So we need to make sure we're staying on top of this, and this is a method to ensure that not only are reports being filed, but that the chair is ensuring that they've been filed. Part four here, the finance committee she'll present a monthly financial report on contributions, expenditures, and PDC reporting updates to both the 43rd board and at monthly 43rd DEMS meetings. This is, again, just more transparency and confirmation that that reports are getting filed and that everybody is aware of the goings on of the PAC. I don't think this will take up too much time at our meetings, but we want to make sure that we're being really transparent and that membership knows that things are being handled. Step 5 is something that's required by law, so maybe not needed in our SANE rules, but felt worth mentioning just to call out, which is that the treasurer is also responsible for retaining the records pertaining to the PAC for the time required by the PDC or other laws or entities. So that's that is all geared towards making sure that we are staying compliant. Section 2 is in regards to spending. Part 1 here is just that spending for the PAC is going to follow our 43rd bylaws. You need a budget, and the spending has to be approved by either the chair, treasurer, or the executive board. Part 2 is that the membership needs to approve a budget. These are the exact same requirements for approving a budget as we have used in the past for our 527 organization. Part 3 is that spending, including in-kind contributions, needs to be reported to the treasurer on the day they are made or received, and that itemized receipts must be provided to the treasurer within 5 days. That is to the other big area where organizations and PACs get in trouble is if they report spending or contributions, they've missed them and they have to go back and amend their returns or their reports. This is to ensure that the responsibility is on members of the board, essentially is who this is most likely to apply to, but that when board members are spending, they need to let the treasurer know, and they need to get receipts to the treasurer so that we can file correct and up-to-date PDC reports. Part 4 is all spending supported candidates or ballot measures must only promote candidates or ballot measure positions that have been endorsed by the 43rd District Democrats. This is real basic. The PAC has to follow our endorsements. And I think that's really straightforward and clear, but wanted to make sure that's in there. And then part 5 is that the PAC shall not make direct contributions to candidates or campaigns for or against ballot measures. That is, I guess I would phrase that as a policy choice. Some Democratic LDs raise money and then they give that money that they raise directly to their endorsed candidates. Those campaigns can then spend that money as they see fit. Our intention with establishing a PAC is that we will have funds available to us to print our own literature, that we will not be giving funds to campaigns directly, but that we're going to do the work to get out the word about who the 43rd District Democrats are endorsing and make that clear to residents and voters in the 43rd. So that's all feedback that we've heard from folks over the past 2 months while we're considering this. So wanted to enshrine that as well. Maddie, I believe that is it for the rules. Is that correct? Or is there anything lower? Yep. Okay. That's the last one. So again, we'll take questions from folks on the standing rules. Okay. Seeing no questions, we will move on. Maddie, could you put up the proposed PAC budget really quickly? And this is the last item we have to get through before we can take a vote on this. All right, so this is a new PAC budget, proposed budget for the PAC through the rest of 2021. In terms of an opening balance up at the top, the PAC will start with nothing. So we're starting from zero. For the budgeted amounts down below, we have membership dues. That is approximately the amount left we have in our annual membership dues goal that we think will potentially come in through the rest of this year. A big driver that will likely be our September endorsements meeting. Just a quick shout out to everybody. If we did not endorse in the mayor or Seattle City Council Position 9 or Seattle City Attorney or King County Executive, if you have a candidate that you want us to endorse in the general for that, get folks to sign up to be 43rd members and show up and vote for them. So that's where the membership dues funds will come from. The fundraising events, we will, once we have the PAC set up, be hosting one or more fundraisers in order to fund the PAC. And so fundraising events and then general donations, we're going to be making asks to current 43rd members and others for contributions above and beyond membership dues. So these are more guesses than they are certainties. We're not sure about this. We essentially paused all direct fundraising asks back in March of 2020 during the pandemic. We completely understood that folks very often did not have the ability to contribute extra then, and we thought that there were better causes that money could potentially go for. Ben, I see your hand, and I will get to you after I get through this. And so this will be the first time we have made a fundraising push in about 1.5 years. So there is some uncertainty there, but we think that these are achievable targets that will allow us to reach our goals for the PAC this year. And then going forward, we'll be directing future money there. And so we'll try and build up our reserves some more going forward. So Ben, you have a question about membership dues.
Yes, thank you, Scott. Will the membership dues be sent to the PAC for 100% of what was formerly sent to the 43rd District Democrats account, or at what point will it switch back? What's the plan?
Yeah, yep, that's a great question. So the plan is to, yes, move 100% of 43rd District Democrats membership dues, future membership dues into the PAC, and do the same with other fundraising, and to, over time, continue funding the PAC, spend down the current 527 account on things like, voter registration or basic get out the vote activities. And then eventually we will be left just with the PAC organization. So that is the plan there. another really good question. And Maddie, we still need to go through the spending. So if you could share your screen again really briefly. And scroll down. Great. So here is our proposed spending plan. We are going to, we've budgeted $1,000 to pay for compliance needs. This will be spent on compliance software, essentially, to allow our treasurer to keep things in order. Fundraising, we put it at $2,000. That's for hosting some fundraising events. We'll put our credit card transaction fees in that bucket as well as any spending that we're doing to drive fundraising and those general donations as well. And then 9,000, the vast majority, is dedicated to campaign promotion. So again, as mentioned before, that will be spent on publishing lit and getting that to our PCOs and having those really important conversations with voters at their doors about who our endorsed candidates are and why it's so important that we move to elect them in the general election. So that is our budget. Are there any other questions about the budget, or I'll also open it up to the whole everything combined now that we've gotten through everything? Any questions that folks have? Any questions that folks have about the 43rd Dems opening a pack? If we see none, that's okay. But just want to make sure we're covering everything. All right, I'm not seeing any questions. Thank you, Ben, for some really great questions while we were going through those. Appreciate that. Since we had no questions, I guess I'm going to, we can hold separate votes on all of these and separate discussions on them, but I don't think any of them make sense to pass without also passing the others. So gonna open it up and ask if there is any, if anyone has objections or concerns to passing all three of these together. Are there any objections? And if there are no objections, we will approve all of these by unanimous consent. Any objections? Okay, I see no objections. So by unanimous consent, we have approved our bylaws change, our PAC standing rules, and our proposed budget for the 43rd District Democrats PAC. Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate that. I want to give a really super shout out to some of our volunteers who helped get us to this point. Tara Gallagher, our former vice chair, has been really integral in providing her knowledge of past practices back when the 43rd had a PAC previously. And so really appreciate her guidance. Our co-chair, Maddie Von Hoff, has been doing quite a bit of work as well on moving this forward. And then our treasurer, Brad Bell, has also helped us figure out the IRS implications and other things. And those three folks especially have been, we've all been meeting essentially weekly or maybe every other week sometimes for the past few months to get this figured out. So thank you to all of those folks. Cody Olson also joined and helped us ask good questions and get things straightened out. Annabelle, as I mentioned, helped with the bylaws changes and her committee also contributed to that. So I'm really excited about this moving forward. All those folks stepped up to make this happen. We're going to need the rest of the organization and our PCOs and our memberships to step up to get this literature out to folks, to help us raise money, bring in more members who can help us distribute the word about the great candidates that we have already endorsed and that we're going to be endorsing in September. So really appreciate it. you all hear more from us on this, going forward. We're going to get to work getting things set up. And so expect, I think probably in the week or so after the primary election, you all will start hearing more from us about how you can help out and contribute to the PAC. So really appreciate that. This is, I think, a new chapter for the 43rd, and I'm really excited to go with you all into that chapter. So with that, again, I can't view the agenda, but I think we have committee reports left. So I will open it up to any 43rd board members who have committee reports to give. And just raise your hand if you have something. Efren.
All right, just a quick update following the passage of the resolution earlier tonight. We're going to try to see if we can get this introduced at the next KCDCC e-board meeting on the 27th. I'll follow up with results from that. Other than that, thanks again, everybody.
Great, thanks, Efren. Are there any other committee reports? I see Kelsey, your hand is up. And I will also open it up to, well, okay, let's get through committee reports first. Kelsey, go for it.
Just had a quick update that I noticed we don't provide alt text on our images on our website. So I've been slowly adding that. But that is just pretty much a very quick and small update that I can provide.
Great, thanks for that, Kelsey, really appreciate it. Camille.
Hey, so as we all know, we passed a lot of policy-based resolutions today. So we have a policy meeting on Thursday. So if anyone that has never joined or has joined is interested in helping start to advocate for these policies, let me know. I'm putting my email in the chat.
Great, yes. And then Bryce gave an update in the chat as well that the membership committee is looking for members. So please do email membership@43democrats.org if you're interested in joining. Dawn.
Just that for the mutual aid subcommittee that we will be having a breakout rooms in the first Thursdays with the policy advocacy committee, if anyone would like to join those. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Don. Yeah, that policy committee, mutual aid committee, doing really great work. So I encourage folks to join there. So we are, I think that is all for our committee reports. So I will open it up to go to the order for everybody. If folks have announcements to share, any community events coming up, we'll open the floor. Arshia.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Great, thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Arshia. I am the political director for Representative Adam Smith. I just want to give a really quick update on a couple of exciting things that happened in the House this past month. So Adam is very excited that he has secured more than $20 million in funding for transportation and infrastructure projects here in the 9th. All of his transportation requests were included in the Invest Act, which passed the House of Representatives. It's it's been sent over to the Senate, and we'll see. We're pretty hopeful that that will pass. He has also secured over $8 million in funding for community projects in the 9th District as well. So that's for helping community organizations with projects that they have around for small business incubators, for food pantries. There are 10 different community funding projects, and all of them were included in the appropriations bill. So when that passes, those projects will receive full funding. And I will leave a link to all the projects below as well. So that is my main update on the ledge side. If anyone has any questions, I can try to answer them now, or I can get back to you with a more detailed response, and I'll leave my contact information below. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Archie. I really appreciate it. Yeah, any other good of the order that folks have? Ellen.
Hi, just a clarification, Arshia, did you say I'm taking notes here. Did you say million or billion in that last? I thought you said million, but I heard billion, so clarifying.
Oh, yes. So it is million. I should clarify. It is million. If I said billion, that was a mistake. It is 20 million for transportation projects and 8 million for community funding projects.
Perfect. I'm hard of hearing, so I just wanted to check in. Thank you.
Great. Good distinction. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Arshia, and thanks, Ellen, for taking notes in our minutes. I really appreciate that. Okay, any other good of the orders that folks have? All right, I'm not seeing any. I will just one more time say, please do reach out to our PCO chair, Cody Olson, if you need a walk list to walk your precinct, and or go get involved with a campaign. There, a bunch of them are knocking on doors. We at our June endorsements meeting, we did not manage to endorse in many of the most contested races in the 43rd. So I'm not currently aware of candidates that we have endorsed doing much door knocking. The port candidates aren't on the primary ballot, and others don't have that going. We will, if we get that information, we'll pass it on to you. But I know people here feel really strongly about the candidates for mayor, city council, city attorney, county exec. And so really just encourage you to reach out and get involved with those campaigns directly, because they are all geared up and good at vote time, and they all need your help. So I really encourage folks to do that. So that is it for our meeting. I will declare us adjourned. I am going to request that all of our board members stick around. We have something to discuss very briefly. But other than that, I will see you all in the near future and outdoor knocking. So thanks so much. Awesome. So we can stop recording, I think.
Okay.
And stop streaming as well.